I'm Phyllis. I live in my van. This is the salmon that I preserved a different way from the other one. You saw in my last video where I made a ceviche. This looks like a hot mess, and it is. It's you coat it with half sugar and half salt and then spices. And y'all, I just tasted it. It's incredible. This is celery root. I bought it a couple of days ago, and I probably shouldn't have had it in the refrigerator because it's got a bit of mold on it. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. Probably mostly come off with the peel. I've never cooked celery root before, but it's a root vegetable, and I'm going to treat it like a potato. Well, there it is, peeled and chopped, I guess you could say. Y'all should do better than I do. Things cook better if they're more evenly cut, but I'm not an evenly cut kind of gal. And look at this, y'all. I had all this food and stuff on the countertop, and I had my pipe like over there, and I bumped the celery root and it rolled off the counter. And let's see if I can do this with one hand. My pipe fell off the counter and broke, so that kind of sucks. But plan on seeing that pipe at least in the next few days with gorilla tape on it, because I'm about an hour from the nearest town. So I've got 4 cloves of garlic. If you're not a huge garlic fan like I am, you can do 1 clove of garlic or no garlic. And that bad boy right there that looks like something out of a scary movie is fresh horseradish. Sometimes I just buy things at the store that look interesting I've never bought before, and this isn't one of them as celery root is, but fresh horseradish is a lovely thing. If you like that bite of horseradish, it's even more awesome fresh. And I didn't want to buy that big of a piece, but that's what they had. So I'm just gonna saute that for a minute or two, and then I'm gonna put in what I have chopped here. The garlic and the horseradish, like I mentioned, and then I bought these recently just because I'd never seen them before. So there's 3 of those in there, but I don't think they're hot at all. The only time I've used them before was in that marinade for the ceviche, and it wasn't hot at all. So I'm going to tell you about oil, the oil I like to use. My everyday oil pretty much is grapeseed oil. I know everybody's all about olive oil, but it's really too strongly flavored for most things. And what I read online one time, yeah, because the internet, everything's true, was that most of it's really old and you actually don't get the health benefits you're supposed to. And grapeseed oil has a longer shelf life and a faster turnover. And it has a nice light fruity flavor. I'm almost out of that, so what I'm actually thinking about using, I bought this, I couldn't find any more grapeseed oil, so I spent like $15 y'all on this avocado oil, so I might put some of that in there. Okay, I added a little bit of grapeseed oil and salt, and I just threw in the peppers, and I'm gonna saute that for a few minutes, and then add the garlic and the horseradish. Garlic is kind of delicate and it's easy to burn, so I don't want to overcook it and I don't want it to burn. So sorry, it's hard to do this with one hand without the skillet moving. Y'all, this is van life. I'm on a little bit of an incline now, so everything's wanting to go to the left. That's real van life. Actually, I think I'm gonna put the lid on that. Oh, I think when I bought it, I was thinking about just boiling it and treating it like a potato, making it like a mashed potato. But when I cut it up, it's not as dense as a potato, and I wasn't sure if that would work. So I'm trying this. And I have almost no cell service, so I can't go on the internet, which is what I usually do when I buy a new vegetable or something. So we're just gonna cover that for now. And probably turn down the heat. Y'all, I love this stove so much. By the way, when you're cutting it up, I'd recommend putting the cut pieces while you're working on it in a bowl of water. The celery root seems to brown a little bit like apples do. You know, in fact, the texture of the celery root somewhere like between an apple and a potato, leaning more towards apple. Okay, the stuff is really good, but I think I might actually try to brown it a little bit. Looks like it's browning in some parts, but the flavor is really yum. If I had an oven, I think celery root would be really good if you chopped it up and then just tossed it in some kind of nice oil and roasted it in the oven. I think it'd be really yummy that way too. So I sauteed it for, about 5 minutes or so, and then I put the lid on. I'm not sure how long, probably about 15 minutes, until the celery root was kind of soft. Still a little bit crunchy and a little bit soft, if that makes any sense. And now I'm just gonna try to brown a little bit. But y'all, it smells really good. I really wish y'all could smell this. I wish I could stir it without knocking it down. It smells so good. I love this copper pan, but stuff doesn't really brown in it. So if I do this again, I think I'm gonna do it in the iron skillet. But I'm gonna call this a success, and it is totally yum. Well, here I go. I've got my celery root with garlic, horseradish, salt and pepper, and 3 of those green peppers that I showed you earlier. Nicely roasted. It's wonderful. And in my celery root, I'm having some of the salmon that I preserved the other day. And I'm going to talk about that as soon as I eat some of this. Bon appetit! One thing about the celery root, I would say as a tip, is use more spices and salt than you would think it needed, because even with those 4 cloves of garlic and that like an inch of horseradish and those 3 green peppers, it was a little bland, I mean, to my taste. So don't be afraid to use more spice. Just like potatoes, potatoes are like a flavor sink. They're like a blank canvas. So you're gonna need to add more stuff than you probably think you need to. Maybe try those 4 cloves of garlic. Maybe. And I am going to include the recipe that I used to make that salmon in the description, but I know some of y'all are gonna get mad at me and maybe bitch slap me a little bit in comments if I don't say more about it. So I bought that salmon kind of accidentally. I was at the fish counter and I heard these people talking about they wanted to get some salmon at this price that was for this giant fillet, and they didn't want the whole fillet. I was like, well, I'll split it. I looked at the price, guesstimated the weight of the salmon, and was way off. So I actually got $16 worth of salmon, this giant piece. And I made the ceviche in the last video. For this one, I used most of that fillet that I bought. And it's 1 part sugar to 1 part kosher salt. And the amount you use depends on how big your fillet is. And you just want to make sure it completely covers it, like 1/4 of an inch thick all the way around. And then you're supposed to put it in a pan. I don't have a very large pan, so I put it in aluminum foil and spread the coating over it, turned it over, and I made sure it was completely coated on both sides, and I wrapped it up really tight in aluminum foil, and then I put it in a plastic bag so it wouldn't leak in my refrigerator. And you're supposed to weigh it down in your refrigerator. So what I did is I actually put it under my milk. I buy milk by the gallon. Yes, I love milk. So the milk was a really good weight. And then what you do is every 12 hours, twice a day, you turn it over and put your weight back on top of it and leave it in the refrigerator. That's supposed to be ready in 24 hours. I left mine 48 before you saw it in that picture, and I actually put it back in there. I was kind of, the rest of it that I haven't eaten already, I put it back in there. I was kind of curious what it would do to the texture for a longer period of time curing. And I think it's supposed to keep for a couple of months in your refrigerator if you do it this way. I'm actually thinking about trying it with maybe pork. I mean, why couldn't you do it with pork? But the texture is lovely. It really reminds me of well, the flavor, sort of the texture remind me of smoked salmon. Anyway, try it. It's super easy. I mean, you have to plan a couple days ahead, but it's not really any cooking. You mix up, oh, and I forgot to say, in the sugar and the salt, you add spices. And I added a lot, and a lot was completely appropriate. I can't even tell you what I added because I had this little spice sample from Penzeys that had a lot of pepper in it, and it was red. And I would encourage you to use some kind of spice that had red in it. I think smoked paprika would be lovely, and because I think that helped give it that beautiful color. But it's so easy. You just mix it up and you stick it in your refrigerator and you turn it twice a day for a day or two. And it's just yum. And you know how when you cook salmon, it can get so dry? This is not dry. This is major yum. What a good boy. Buddy's a good boy. Buddy's a good boy.